Welcome everyone to the Divorce School. This session is about what your child really wants you to know. My name is Martha Chan. I am the founder of the Divorce School and the co-owner of Divorce Magazine and DivorcedMoms.com. While I've never been divorced personally, I have been a stepmother of two boys for 18 years. My husband, Dan Coubret, who co-owns the business with me, started the Divorce Magazine 20 years ago after his separation from his ex, and I've been involved ever since. For the session of the Divorce School, I have the pleasure of speaking to one of our faculty members, Rosalind Sedacca, who is recognized as the voice of child-centered divorce. Rosalind is a divorce and parenting coach, as well as the founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network for Parents. She is also the author of the internationally acclaimed ebook, How Do I Tell the Kids About the Divorce? Rosalind is the co-host of the Divorce Real Talk show and podcast, an expert blogger for the Huffington Post and Divorce Magazine, and advisor at parentalwisdom.com, a contributing expert for Kids Edge magazine, and numerous other divorce, parenting, and single websites and blogs. Rosalind will be sharing her personal insights for parents on what your child really wants you to know about your divorce. So please join me in welcoming a woman who has created a heartfelt approach to a very difficult situation, Rosalind Sedacca.
Thank you so much, Martha. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Rosalind, you are recognized as the voice of child-centered divorce. Would you share some of your personal story with us?
Yes. When I was married for close to 20 years and getting a divorce, it was very traumatic for me because my son was 11 years old at the time, and I knew so much about the emotional and psychological impact of divorce on children, and I didn't want to be scarring my son. So I spent weeks and weeks of sleepless nights trying to figure out the right way to break the divorce news to him. He was close to his dad and to me, and I knew that this was a very difficult subject to approach. And while there was information out there on what to say, no one really told you how to say it. And finally, one night at 4 a.m, I came up with an approach that I actually used. And it was creating a storybook about our family that I was able to present to my son. And I wrote the text, and I integrated family photos of happier times when we were all together, and put it in a book with 6 key messages that children need to hear at the time of breaking that divorce news. And this is my original storybook. Just to show you, I just put it into a photo album with family photos and the text. And it was such a valuable resource because it made the process so much better, and it brought my husband and I together in telling our son this important information. And it wasn't until 15 years later that I actually turned that into my book, How Do I Tell the Kids About the Divorce, founded the Child-Centered Divorce Network, became a divorce and parenting coach, and really moved my life into the direction of helping other families focus on divorce. And that's the process that happened to me unexpectedly, and why I'm here with you today.
Rosalind, I've known you for quite a few years, and I've certainly know you to be someone who is completely into helping parents and children go through the divorce process. Just now, seeing your original work of that book just held up, which I've never seen, it sends chill down my spine, because there's no doubt that children are important in our lives, and I could really tell that you cared so much that even though you didn't know how, you created the tool and to tell your children. And that book, his history, not just history of your family, but also history for us who's in the divorce business. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Can you tell us how divorce affect children, in your opinion? And can we do anything to reduce the emotional and psychological impact on them?
Well, that's such an important question. I'm glad you asked. Children are emotionally and psychologically scarred by divorce. They're hurt and they're bruised and they're confused. They are filled with guilt about maybe being responsible for the divorce. Maybe if I was a better little girl and mommy and daddy didn't yell at me last month, maybe this wouldn't be happening. Or maybe if I didn't get bad grades in school, this wouldn't be happening. So they're filled with guilt. They're filled with shame, sharing this information with other friends and people in their communities. They're filled with blame, feeling that maybe they were responsible in some way for this outcome, and especially helplessness. Think about what it's like to be a child of any age, even a teenager. There's nothing you can do about this. It's happening to you, and they're all innocent victims. And sadly, divorce changes who they are for life. It's an emotional impact that's so strong that it affects them on so many levels. They will all remember the moment they were told, the aftermath of the divorce, how the transition was handled, how the parents got along. And that's why it's so important for us as parents to keep all of this in mind before making any decisions. It also destroys and robs them of their childhood if it isn't treated well by the parents. It forces your kids to grow up too early, especially if they're becoming privy to adult information that there's nothing they can do about and they're not mentally and psychologically prepared to handle. And it also teaches them to be angry or hurtful or resentful or uncooperative to others because they don't know how to handle their emotions. And so what often happens is you'll find some children will start acting out. They'll start developing behavior problems, aggression, violence, promiscuity, drug and alcohol abuse, while other children will turn in instead. And they'll start experiencing depression, receding from the activities they were doing, disappearing from family and friends, and even some becoming suicidal. And their school grades suffer. They have problems getting along with others, and all of the things that parents fear when raising children are more likely to happen. But that's only if the divorce isn't handled well. And that's why we're all about helping parents make the right choices and the best decisions regarding their children.
The symptoms that you just talked about, as far as how children react to the divorce, certainly are wide-ranging, and I completely agree that as parents we need to be aware and be able to identify those indicators. Now, what are some of the most serious mistakes that parents who are going through divorce or thinking about getting a divorce or are already divorced are making that you could share with us and our viewers so that they can take notice of that?
Yes, and these are mistakes that are universally agreed upon by all mental health counselors and divorce experts, especially as a result of many, many studies. For one, all studies have proven that fighting in front of the children, being exposed to conflict, is one of the most damaging things for children, whether they're in an intact marriage or in a divorce or separation. It's the conflict that does the emotional and psychological harm. So you can't be fighting with your ex around the kids, even on the phone or in another room. You have to keep that away from them. You also don't want to be bad-mouthing your soon-to-be ex or your former spouse to the children. Children love both mom and dad. And when they hear one parent putting down the other and disparaging them and belittling them, it affects who they are, and it makes them feel guilty for loving the other parent, or hurt that you could be talking about the other parent that way. It confuses them. It's very, very damaging. Keep your opinions to yourself. Share them with your friends and your therapist, but do not talk to your children to alienate them from their parents. And any behavior that alienates your children, that tries to separate them, that means don't share adult information with your children, even when they're in their teens. And I know it's tempting. It's tempting to justify why you're so angry. And you want to let the kids know that if your mom or dad wasn't drinking or gambling or didn't have an affair or whatever the situation is, then we wouldn't be in this mess. It's tempting to talk like that. But it hurts the children, and there's nothing they can do about adult information, so don't share it with them. They're not emotionally and psychologically capable of processing it, and as we all know, most adults aren't either, so why do that to them? You also never want to use your kids as messengers. Tell dad to pick you up at 1:30 instead of 2:30 tomorrow. That's not the way to communicate. There are scheduling tools online. There are many, many resources for you to use. Do not make your children feel that they're responsible. And if the other party says, no, I don't want to do that, suddenly your child is going back and forth and relaying information that's awkward, confusing, and infuriating for them. You also don't want your kids to be used as spies. It's so tempting when they come back from a visit to say, so what did mom do, and who did mom see, and where did mom take you? Now, some of those questions are natural and normal, but when you start investigating and the kids pick up on it, they feel that they're being used as spies. Again, they feel confused, they feel guilty, they feel ashamed, they feel very insecure about sharing information that perhaps mom or dad told them don't say anything about. Don't want to put your children in that position where they're feeling awkward. And never confide adult information to your children. Secrets and things that you would be better off sharing with your friends or your therapist. And be very, very careful that whatever you do, you never use your kids as pawns in the divorce. The easiest way to hurt your ex is through the kids. We all know that. But when we use the kids in that way, and when we bargain using seeing the children or having access to the children or doing certain things with the children, it backfires for you and it harms them. So there are several others, but these are the most important mistakes you need to be aware of and avoid in order to honor your children with the love and respect they deserve before, during, and long after the divorce process.
Rosalind, what you've just said are truly good rules to live by, whether you are divorced or not. And I totally get it that if you are in if you're separated or divorced from your spouse, the temptation that you referred to of wanting to be right and justify putting down your spouse, even with a slight comment, is something that people do, right? So co-parenting certainly is even more challenging. What tips do you have for handling the frustrations and the conflict of co-parenting with your ex?
There are so many ways that we can co-parent more effectively or take the path towards destructive co-parenting. So I'm so glad you asked that question, Martha. It's important that every parent learns skills, because the more skilled you are, the more you will avoid the damaging effects of divorce on children. Again, children are not damaged by the divorce itself. The damage is done by how parents process the divorce, how they handle the divorce. And that's the good news, because it means you have choices, you have options, and your children can come away relatively unscathed from the divorce if you keep this information in mind. So there are communication strategies that we can learn that are good in any relationship, married relationship, as well as after the marriage, and especially important in co-parenting. Learning how to communicate, learning how to listen, and learning how to diffuse tension. There are ways of talking to your partner that's going to put them on the defensive, alienate them, and get them upset right from the beginning. Chances are in your marriage that was happening. That's part of why the divorce took place. And so now you want to not repeat the old patterns, but learn communication skills. It's very important to learn listening skills and be able to say things in a different way than you might have been saying it through your marriage. You also want to learn how to pick your battles, and that means when to stand up and be very affirmative and aggressive about, I will not tolerate this regarding the children, versus when to sit back and compromise. You want to pick those moments that are very occasional when you're standing up and you're kicking in and saying, no, we can't do it this way, and here's why. Not every time something happens that you disagree with, because then it diffuses the important times. So co-parenting is about compromising. It's about learning to accept and tolerate and listen. And remember that there's two parents who may not see eye to eye about things, who are parenting the same children. And what you have in common is that you both love that child, those children. And when you keep that in mind, it helps you make better decisions. So it's important to take the high road whenever possible. That means be flexible, be malleable, do each other favors. Everyone needs favors when you're co-parenting. Co-parenting is a lifelong process. It's not 6 months or 6 years after divorce. It's the rest of your life. And so occasions are going to come up, times are going to come up when you need help. You need someone to fill in. Things change, schedules change. You need an emergency favor from your ex. And only if you step in and do that will your ex be malleable to doing the same. So you need to take the initiative and be flexible, do favors, grant them favors so that when you need it, they're more likely to do that. Treat your partner the way you want to be treated, not the way they treat you. I know the argument is my ex is an SOB and he or she is really out to hurt me in every possible way. And that may be true. But if you set an example and you are more flexible and do more favors, they are less likely to be entrenched in hurting you and more likely to understand that they're going to need favors as well. And when you have issues that are so frustrating and infuriating for you, vent to your friends and family, not to your kids and not to your ex. No one wants to be blamed continuously for things they did wrong, and your kids are not the place to go with your frustrations about the co-parenting situation. So you want to listen to your children, but you don't want to use them as a sounding board to vent to.
Wow, your message is very, very clear. I often say to people that there is a course in life that's never really taught in school, which is called how to communicate with people and how to nurture relationships. And I've often said to people that the time to learn these skills is when the marriage is strong. Because it's very difficult to be learning these skills when emotions are high. So thank you for saying what you just said to us. Now, can you tell us the questions that you would suggest for parents ask themselves before making any decisions regarding the children? What might those questions be?
Yes, there are some very, very important questions. I think if parents master these questions, it'll help you move way ahead in understanding the co-parenting process and being more effective as a co-parent. So the first question that every parent should ask themselves before you make any decision regarding your children is, do I love my kids more than I may hate or dislike my ex? I'm going to repeat that. Do I love my kids more than I may hate or dislike my ex? Because if you ask yourself that and you focus in that direction, you're going to be making cleaner, better decisions about everything that you have to deal with. It's putting the children first because you love your children. It's not about hurting the ex first. It's about loving the children more and making those decisions. Another question that I really think is pivotal is to ask yourself, what will the children say to us about the divorce when they are grown adults? Think about that. What will your kids say to you when they are no longer the age they are now, but in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now? Because children hold on to the anger and the resentment they have about the divorce process. And very often they'll turn on you as an adult and say, why did you lie? Why did you say this? Why didn't you do that? Why did you keep me from my other parent? And sometimes it turns on parents so much that they no longer have a relationship with a parent that may be alienating them from their other parent, or who hurt their other parent and they felt helpless during the time. So ask yourself that question right now, and then talk to each other about that. How are the kids going to hold us responsible about this? And that'll make a big difference. Another pivotal question is, when you're making a decision, would I be making this same decision if we were still married? So if something has to do with discipline or school or a vacation trip or any of the other parenting responsibilities that are inevitably going to come along, are you making a clean decision because that's best for little Johnny or little Susie? Or are you making a decision because you want to hurt your ex? If that is muddling the waters and you ordinarily would have done things differently, but because you're now divorced, you want to get back at your ex, then you're hurting your children and your decision is going to backfire on you. So keep yourself focused on the business at hand, which is raising the children that you love in the best possible way. Another question that I want everyone to think about is, how can we minimize the physical, emotional, and spiritual consequences of our divorce on our children? Your children may have gone through some months or even years of drama while you were before the divorce, while you were still living at home. And now you want to minimize those consequences. You want to give them the best support possible. And it may mean taking them to see a therapist, or for you to join a group or get coaching on co-parenting skills. But whatever you do, you want to be thinking about that so that you're learning better skills, you're more capable, and you're understanding that the focus should always be on the well-being of your kids, not on your opinion. Because if you and your ex can't focus your attention on what's really best for the kids you love, then you're not being a responsible parent. You're too engaged in hurting one another rather than raising your kids. And that's going to backfire on you and hurt your children in so many ways. So the last question I want everyone to focus on is, how can we make life better for our kids after the divorce than it was before? I'll repeat that. How can we make life better for our kids after the divorce than it was before? Now that you're post-divorce, what can you do now? Can you show up at birthdays and graduations and holidays and happy times in the children's lives and sit in the same room together for an hour or 2 or 3? Can you both be there without saying bad things about one another to the children? Can you be responsible adults and role models for your children? Because that's what your children need. They need you to step up and be the best you can be. And when you are, that's the gift you're giving to your kids. And if your ex isn't playing the game well and isn't participating on that level to their best ability, that doesn't mean you have to go down to their level. That means you want to rise up and be a role model that your kids can emulate and be proud of, because you're teaching them how to deal with challenge and conflict and issues that aren't easy in life. And they're going to have to be facing that. So these are pivotal questions to ask yourself that'll keep you on track. You'll never regret having the right answers.
Rosalind, when a parent is ready to move on and start dating, what are some of the things that they need to do before they actually take that step?
That's an important question as well. We have to remember that through every facet of our lives, we have to put our children first when it comes to divorce and parenting issues. So when you're going out into the dating world after divorce, and I hope and pray you do the inner work first, which means really understand the part you played in the divorce, not just blaming your ex, but what role did you play, understanding how you could make changes and better choices in the future, and really looking to the type of person that you want to be and the type of person you want to attract into your life. So there's a lot of help and support we can give you for that process before you start. But when you are ready to start dating, and many of you will be going online for that process, it's very important that you never hide that you're a parent. You want people to understand that you're a divorced parent and your children come first, and that your children are very important in your life. You also want to take it very slow. Date, go through the process, try different partners, but don't bring your children into the picture until you are really serious that you've found a keeper, someone who's a prospective long-term partner. It's very painful for children to have to go through the experience of meeting someone and then 3 months later they're gone, and then someone is there for 6 months and then they're gone, and on like a revolving door. Children get attached to other people who treat them well, or they have anxiety about new people coming into their lives. They feel jealous and competitive with their parents. Lots of issues go on, and you don't want to be putting them through emotional turmoil just for every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Susie and Sally that comes along in your life. So be selective, be careful. And then when you do introduce them, you want to make sure you're choosing partners who value and appreciate kids. They're not going to fall in love with your children the way you do, but they have to like kids, appreciate kids, value and respect kids. If you have a partner who is only in love with you and is tolerating your children, right from the beginning, you're setting yourself up for painful experiences. And you want to make sure you never put your children in a competition for your love, which is a very common situation in blended families. And I'm sure, Martha, you have a lot of experience with this. You don't want a competition. The love you have for your children is a different love than you have for your romantic partner. And neither side should feel that it's an either or you're spending more time with one than the other. It's a different love, and they both have to respect the fact. But your children should never feel that mom or dad is choosing another person over me, and I'm getting to spend less time with them, and they may not love me as much as they used to. Those are painful things for children. And so you want to be very careful. And if your children are not liking your new partner, stop and listen and give it a lot of thought and attention. Sometimes their antenna are on in a stronger way than your own, because you may be overwhelmed with love or lust or whatever is going on in your romantic situation, and you may not be as aware as the kids are about the innate personality traits of your partner. So this is a challenging situation, and one you want to really handle effectively. And of course, seek out a coach, a therapist, a support group, whatever you need to make sure you're able to handle this in the best possible way for you and your entire family.
Wow, that dating after divorce is an entire topic unto its own that we could probably spend many more sessions on that. So thank you. Before we close off the session, I know that you have a gift for our viewers. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. I have a free ebook for all of our viewers. It's called Post-Divorce Parenting: Success Strategies for Getting It Right. And if you go to my website, childcentereddivorce.com, you'll be able to just enter your email address and it'll immediately be downloaded to you. So that's childcentereddivorce.com. And in addition, because you are part of the Divorce Magazine Divorce School, I am offering a complimentary free session, a coaching session on divorce and parenting issues to any of our viewers who contact me. And you could reach me at Rosalind, ROSALIND, at childcentereddivorce.com, and I'll schedule a complimentary session with you.
Wow, thank you, Rosalind, for that generous offer. We will repeat the contact information at the very end of this video. so that for those of you who have missed it while Rosalind was talking, don't worry, we'll do that. Before we go, I wanted to let our viewers know that if you look on the screen right now, you will see a few other videos and podcasts that you can listen to or watch by the Divorce School. We encourage you to click on one of them and continue learning. Rosalind, thank you very much for the time today. It has been very, very insightful.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.